Hello, everybody. My name is Julie Mathews, and my ARP research project was focused on the barriers in recruiting foster families of color in the state of Oklahoma. I am currently a kinship foster care and adoption supervisor. I've been with the state since 2015, and I have been a supervisor since 2021. I think I've done it for almost 3 years. I've chosen this topic because whenever I was in the field and currently me being a supervisor, I have realized in the state of Oklahoma, we do have a large amount of foster kids of brown and black cultural backgrounds that need to be placed in a home that reflect their racial background. We have a lot more Caucasian families that are our foster parents. So I thought that it would be an important topic to discuss and to see what those barriers are by going out to the community and talking to the families that reflect those Black and brown children. I'm also interested in this topic because I do have lived experience as a transracial adoptee. Just a little story about my life. I am from Ethiopia. I came into this country whenever I was 5 years old. I had to be uprooted from my family, just like the children that we serve, just things happening to them in their lives. Things happened to me in my life to where I had to come to this country, not knowing anything about this country. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know that America even existed. All I knew was my culture, my community, the language I spoke, the food I ate, our music, and everything that was in my community. So whenever I got to the US and I was placed into a foster home, I was placed into a foster home that was white. I had to slowly assimilate to their community and their language and their food, while I was losing my culture, my community, my language. The food that I ate, I wasn't eating here. So for me, I felt like it was a very important topic to discuss because we do have a lot of kids that are from a different racial backgrounds being placed in homes that doesn't reflect their racial background, and they end up losing that culture. So my MPLD research topic would be identifying barriers in recruiting foster families of color in Oklahoma. Nationally, as we all know, children of color are overrepresented in the foster care system. These children and youth remain in state custody longer than white children. One identified barrier to permanency I felt in the state of Oklahoma is lack of targeted recruitment, especially in our foster families of African American, Native American, Hispanic, and Latino families. My PICO was if African American, Latino, Native American communities are informed of the need for foster and adoptive parents, and if focused recruitment occurs in those communities, will the perspective and willingness to be a foster or adoptive parent change, and will plans or activities for targeted recruitment be improved? And this is important once again, because if we could put children in a home that reflect their racial background, they don't have to assimilate to races or their racial background that is not their own. The history of families of color fostering, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. In the 20th century, African American birth families and children were denied adoption services by agencies because of their religion, race, or both. By mid-century, an estimate were up to 50,000 African American children were in need of adoption. The U.S. Children's Bureau began including race in its reporting system in the 1948, and in 1950s, a number of innovative programs around the country began recruiting non-white parents. From New York to Chicago to Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., child welfare professionals and civil rights activists came together to promote culturally sensitive policies, integrate agency staff, and do community outreach. The National Urban League Foster Care and Adoptions Project, founded in 1953, and Adopt a Child, founded in 1955, took big steps towards promoting Negro adoption nationally. Adopt a Child lasted for 5 years and received more than 4,000 inquiries. So this is the disproportionality rate by race in the state of Oklahoma. As you can see, anything that's higher than one, there's more than one race has significant increase. And then you can see in the Black children, you can see that there's an increase in 2010, and it slowly did decrease, but it also increased back up by 2019, 2020, 21, and the same for Hispanic and Native American youths as well. This is the population of foster families from different racial backgrounds versus foster children from different racial backgrounds. So this is in 2020. We had 426 African American foster families that were approved. And then we also had 1,822 African American children, foster children, and youth in care. We had 115 Latino and Hispanic foster families approved versus 1,439 Latino and Hispanic youths in care. We also had 736 Native American, Alaskan, Native approved foster home versus 2,884 Native American and Alaskan natives in the foster care system. And then we had 24 Asian American foster homes approved. And then we had 52 Asian American foster children in care. So there is a great need for more foster families of color to foster. So my intervention and methodology, I decided that I wanted to go out to the community and I wanted to know what the community was saying about fostering, or if they've ever been approached about fostering. I wanted to know what the barriers are in fostering and if they felt like that there was a great need for it. So what I did was I created a community survey that had a QR code, and I created a flyer where I had information about the foster care system and the need for our foster youth of Black and Brown children needing to be in a home that reflects their racial background. And I went to different cultural events that included Juneteenth. I went to the Choctaw Festival. I went to the south side of Oklahoma City, where there's a higher population of Latino Hispanic community. And then I went to the LGBTQ festival and talked to families of different racial background and just talked to them to see what their thoughts about fostering was and if they felt like there was a great need. I also created an internal survey with the recruitment team. And that consisted of just asking them questions about their barriers and recruiting families of different foster families of different racial background. And I asked what their barriers were. I gather the information by asking their race, the years that they've been in recruitment, and just to get more feedback from them. I will say my biggest challenge was going out to the Choctaw Festival and going out to the south side of Oklahoma City. I could not get a lot of surveys there just because a lot of families were not willing to talk to me. There was language barrier with the Latino and Hispanic community because I do not speak Spanish. So I did have a lot of barriers in getting a lot more surveys with them. So the internal survey for the state of Oklahoma that I created consisted of 10-question survey that was sent to 50 recruitment staff throughout the state of Oklahoma. And I had about 32 staff answering the survey for me, providing me feedback. The community survey consisted of 15-question survey that I took out, where I took out the QR code with my flyer and just talked to families to see what their barriers are. So this is a demographic of community respondents by race. I did have a higher percentage with the African American community. Whenever I went to Juneteenth, I did have a lot of families, or a lot more families that were willing to talk to me, provide information of, if they've ever been approached, what their barriers were, if they've ever been fostered, and what their experience was whenever they did foster. We also have the Asian American community at 12%. And then we have the Native American community at 10%. And then it looks like we have other at 7%, and then unknown at 2%. This is the demographic of community respondents by age. The highest was the age range between 31 and 40 years old at 39%. And then we had 41 to 50-year-olds that at 34% of them answered. And then we had 51-year-olds or older at 17%. And then at 10% was 21 to 30-year-olds that responded. And being in foster care, we do have a lot more people within the age range between 31 to 50, I would say, that are fostering with my experience. This is the community's feedback. 40% of them had said that they've never been approached about being foster or adopted parents. A lot of them felt that the process was too invasive, the rules and regulations were too crazy. They had questions about childcare. A lot of them expressed to me that I would talk to would say that, I can't foster because I can't afford daycare, which is something that, the state of Oklahoma pays for. So this is just information that we need to provide to them, the correct information. And then the LGBT communities, individuals and families that I was able to talk to, or they provided feedback, they feared they wouldn't be approved just because they were LGBTQ. And then there was concerns that they felt like that they had, other families felt like that they had to have a certain salary to be able to foster or adopt. Some of them fear of not being able to meet the child's needs. A lot of them also expressed that they fear that they would have to give up the foster child they had grown to love. And there were some that said that they felt like that they didn't have lack of space in their home. There were some of them that also said that not enough information or education about children with trauma was some of the reasons why they haven't considered fostering. One of the community survey questions was, is there a great need for members of your community to foster or become a foster adopted parents? 100% of the African-American respondents said yes. And then the Hispanic 3 out of 3, and then the Native community said 2 out of 3. Now, 58% of the respondents were willing to reconsider becoming foster or adopted parents. This is the feedback from the community for child welfare processes. They feel that we need to create like an incentive program for foster families willing to foster. They also feel that we need to help them find maybe adequate housing for foster children so they are able to foster, create more of an outreach program, and make the process more clear, shorter, and more accessible, attend more church events and discuss the need with minority families, and then create a marketplace where families can get more information. So this is the recruitment staff survey. I did it by obtaining their experience in recruitment, their race, their age, and how long they've been in the recruitment, their demographics, and then what their barriers were in recruiting families of different racial background. Oklahoma recruitment staff focuses on recruitment of foster families. Oklahoma has a specific process by which foster or kinship families can transition into adoption. Surveys of recruitment staff were gathered around their active efforts and challenges in recruiting families from different racial backgrounds. This is the feedback from the recruitment team. As I was talking earlier, I said that language barrier was a big thing for me whenever I was on the south side of Oklahoma City because I didn't speak Spanish. There were several recruitment staff that said the same thing, that they don't speak the language of the community that they're going out to. So there was a barrier in just talking about the need for fostering. There's some of them said lack of staff that reflects the community's racial background, lack of events or contacts, the community not trusting anyone outside of their race or ethnicity, agency not having targeted recruiting process, not enough cultural events to recruit the minority families, families following through with paperwork was a barrier, lack of interest in fostering or adopting. Some of them did not respond. And then some staff have small populations of minority families in their service areas. So the lessons I've learned during my ARP research project was representation matters in recruitment efforts. Like I said earlier at the beginning, whenever I was out in the Native American community and I went to that Choctaw Festival where there was hundreds of people there, I could not get but maybe 2 or 3 surveys from that community. And I felt that maybe if I did represent their racial background, they would be more than willing to talk to me or be more comfortable in talking to me. And the same for whenever I went to the south side of Oklahoma City, if I represented maybe their racial background and I was able to speak their language, maybe I can get a lot more surveys and get more information on what the barriers were. I think that making more active efforts in the community would be something that would be good for Oklahoma. Providing more information regarding foster care and the approval process. I feel like also we need to provide more information about children with trauma for these families that are interested or maybe considering fostering, and then maybe having a better need for communication with the community. And then some minority families I've learned do not trust state agencies due to historical factors. So my intervention for recruiting minority families in Oklahoma, we do have this group, what's called Barrier Busters, where we are providing or compiling information for the community about foster care, what that looks like, all the paperwork, what the approval process looks like, who can be approved and who can't be approved. So there is a group here in the state of Oklahoma that I've been a part of that have been able to provide information, paperwork, so the community can have it, because the community doesn't, what they're saying is that they don't have enough information. So what we're doing is compiling a lot of information, and we are going to create a QR code. We're going to provide a link so the community can have that information at hand. I also feel that maybe having a Q&A for the community, going out to those communities, asking them, what are your questions? What are the barriers? And just having somebody that is an expert in the foster care division and providing those answers for them. Having more community partnership and having more information on social media for the need of foster care for our kids in Oklahoma, hiring more staff that reflect the community's racial background, and then creating a program for experienced foster families of color to assist new foster families of color with the foster care process, basically being more of a mentor to them, providing them with support, because for me, I feel like, foster families know what it feels like to be a foster parent more, or know children that come into their home than, workers or supervisors. So I feel like having that mentorship, having that support would be beneficial for families that are considering it. How MPLD was impactful for me is, first and foremost, it really did give me a better understanding of my own loss of my culture and my community and somewhat of my identity. I always knew that, I'm from East Africa. I always knew, the small village I grew up in, but it really put into perspective of the loss that I have of losing my language and my community and my culture, and trying to get that back as an adult now. And it helps me to be more of an advocate for children to have that community and culture connected. If they can't be placed with kinship and if they can't be placed with their biological parents, I think my job is to advocate for them to be in a community that reflects their racial background so they don't lose that sense of community. I learned how to network with different social workers from different divisions. I had a better understanding on how to engage with communities from different racial backgrounds. And lastly, a better understanding why data is important and why we need to pay attention to it. And here is my citations. And thank you so much for your attention.